Hola. God saves the discouraged. In Psalm 34, verse 18, it says that Jehovah is close to the brokenhearted. He saves those who are crushed in spirit. Like some days we feel like the whole world is against us. One thing happened, and like, oh man, and then the next thing happened, like, wow, and this stuff just keep happening, back to back to back. You just like, I ain't even do nothing, just stuff keep happening, right? Like Job must have felt, what I mean, when he lost everything, right? Just like that. Like it brings out in Job 14, verse 1, which reads, man born of woman is short lived and filled with trouble. It sounds like he was discouraged there, right? But it brings out in Romans 15:4 how the scriptures give us comfort. Romans 15, verse 4 reads, for all the things that were written beforehand were written for our instruction, so that through our endurance and through the comfort from the scriptures, we might have hope. That's encouraging right there, right? So let us go into the account in the Bible of Joseph and the two dreams he had, the two prophetic dreams he had that indicated that he would one day hold a position of respect in his family. And how his brother sold him into slavery for 20 pieces of silver, and he was taken to Egypt and resold again to an Egyptian named Potiphar, and then he was falsely accused of raping his wife, Potiphar's wife, and thrown into prison, and just all types of stuff, right, that he went through. So we can about imagine how discouraged he probably felt, wondering why all this was happening to him and really didn't even do nothing, right? It seems, right? And and later on, when God came in, you know, helping, encouraging, or it turned around for him for the better once he stayed faithful and remained loyal to God. So let's get into it. The two dreams Joseph have in Genesis 37, 5 through 10 reads, later, Joseph had a dream and told it to his brothers. They found further reason to hate him. He said to them, please listen to this dream that I had. There we were binding sheaves in the middle of the field, when my sheaf got up and stood erect, and your sheaves encircled and bowed down to my sheaf. His brothers said to him, are you really going to make yourself king over us and dominate us? So they found another reason to hate him, because of his dreams and what he said. After that, he had still another dream, and he related it to his brothers. I have had another dream. This time, the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me. Then he related it to his father as well as his brothers. And his father rebuked him and said to him, what is the meaning of this dream of yours? Am I, as well as your mother and your brothers, really going to come and bow down to the earth to you? So then was the dreams he had, and like I say, his brothers, it just gave his brothers another reason to hate him. So they were thinking about killing him, but they didn't want to do that because they knew that there was their brother. So they didn't want to kill him. So they end up selling him into slavery, right? For 20 pieces of silver, even. Like it brings out in Genesis 37, 27 and 28, which reads, come now, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and do not let our hand be upon him. After all, he is our brother, our flesh. So they listened to their brother. And when the Midianite merchants were passing by, they lifted Joseph up out of the water pit and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. These men took into Egypt. Like I said, once he got down there, the Ishmaelite merchants sold Joseph to an Egyptian named Potiphar, which brings out Genesis 39:1. Now, Joseph was taken down to Egypt, and an Egyptian named Potiphar, a court official of Pharaoh and chief of the guard, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there. So now, in Egypt, being a slave for Potiphar, an Egyptian, right? The next thing you know, Joseph is falsely accused, of raping Potiphar's wife. This brings out in Genesis 39:14 through 20, which reads, She began to cry out to the men of her house and to say to them, Look, he brought to us this Hebrew man to make us a laughing stock. He came to me to lie down with me, but I began to cry out at the top of my voice. And as soon as he heard me raising my voice and screaming, he left his garment beside me and fled outside. After that, she laid his garment beside her until his master came to his house. Then she told him the same thing, saying, The Hebrew servant whom you brought to us came to me to make me a laughing stock. But as soon as I raised my voice and began to scream, he left his garment beside me and fled outside. As soon as his master heard the words his wife had spoken to him, saying, These are the things your servant did to me, his anger blazed. So Joseph's master took him and gave him over to the prison, the place where the prisoners of the king were kept under arrest, and remained there in prison. So we might want to wonder, when did God come in help, right? Right. Here comes the turning point right here. And the lesson for us today. So goes on to say, like, even when Joseph was, even though he was in prison, he didn't think about that because he knew he couldn't get out. So he started to think and concentrate and focus on the work that God gave him to do, assigned him to do, right? And he focused on God more. He kept God first in his life. And Jehovah started blessing him, blessed him, everything he did. Like it brings out in Genesis 39:21 to 23. But Jehovah continued with Joseph and kept showing loyal love to him and granting him favor in the eyes of the chief officer of the prison. So the chief officer of the prison put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners in the prison and everything that they were doing there. He was the one having it done. Chief officer of the prison was looking after absolutely nothing that was in Joseph's care, but Jehovah was with Joseph, and Jehovah made whatever he did successful. That's telling us, long as we do the work that we're assigned by God and keep him first in our life, he will bless everything we do as well. He did Joseph, right? He said, for Jehovah was with Joseph, and Jehovah made whatever he did successful, right? It goes on an account in the account on how his dreams was prophesied, right? Came true. After he was exalted by the king of Egypt, when he interpreted the dreams that the king was having, which were related to the famine or the drought that was coming for so many years, and it wouldn't be no food. So once Joseph interpreted the king's dream and let him know that he had to store up food for so many years because of the drought was coming. So that's what they did. And in turn, the king made Joseph second in command of the whole Egypt, of all the land. Like you had to go to Joseph for everything. It was the king, then it was Joseph next. Second powerful person or man in the land. It was exalted by Jehovah through the king. And once the drought came, his brothers had to come down there to Egypt to get food because there was no food nowhere. Nobody else knew the drought was coming, so no one else was prepared. So for so many years, and when the drought come, everybody had to come to Egypt to get food, buy food, and things of that nature. So his brothers came down to get food. You know, their father sent them down to get food, and by Joseph being the man, basically in command of everything, he was on top, so he could have treated his brothers however he wanted to, right? So it brings out in Genesis 42:6, when Joseph was 37, when his prophetic dreams began to be fulfilled, right? Genesis 42:6, it reads, Joseph was the man, authority over the land, and he was the one who sold grain to all the people of the earth. So Joseph's brothers came and bowed low to him with their faces to the ground. See how the table turned? And, even after all that, he ended up letting them know who he was, and because he hid his face at first. So they didn't know it was Joseph. But he let them know who he was eventually, and he sent them back up to get his other brothers and father and the mother, and they bring everybody back. Kept one brother there to make sure they came back, though. Long story short, they came all back. He let them all in, and you know, everything was cool, ended up cool, and they ended up living down there in one of the best parts of the land, and so on, so on. Everything was cool and happily ever after. But what's the lesson for us today? Like Joseph, as long as we stay loyal to Jehovah, faithful, remain faithful, do what He wants us to do the work that He assigned us to do, keep God first in our life, He will bless us too. Even if we suffer, and be persecuted, by whoever, even if they're fellow believer. We still must remain loyal, faithful to our Heavenly Father in union with Christ, right? To be called to God's everlasting glory. Like it brings out in 1 Peter 5, verse 10, which reads, But after you have suffered a little while, the God of all undeserved kindness, who called you to his everlasting glory in union with Christ, will himself finish your training. He will make you firm. He will make you strong. He will firmly ground you. With that being said, in the description box is a link to a short prayer to ask Jesus to come into your heart and an online Bible study to make the truth your own. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks for watching.